Scorpio, someone close to you is hiding a truth so shameful they can barely stand to be in your presence. But here's the part they didn't expect. Your soul already knows. This isn't just another secret. It's the kind that changes energy. The kind that shifts how someone speaks, how they move, how they smile at you, or more accurately, how they don't. You've felt it, haven't you? That tightness in your chest. That flicker of awareness when they avoid your eyes. The strange politeness, the unnatural pause, the missing warmth. They think they're keeping it hidden. But Scorpio, you don't need words to sense truth. You were born with radar for guilt, for betrayal, for emotional dishonesty. And right now, your radar is blaring. This video isn't here to stir drama. It's here to give you the language for what your spirit already knows. Because the truth isn't just coming. It's already whispering. And you've been listening, even if you didn't realize it. Part 1: The Unseen Shift. How your body already knows the truth. There's a reason, Scorpio, why you haven't been sleeping as easily. Why a certain name, or even just a glance, sends an unease through your chest like a ripple across still, deep water. You've tried to ignore it, tried to be rational, but intuition doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in vibration. And what it's saying right now is loud. Someone in your life is carrying something they haven't said out loud. Not because they don't care about you, but because they care so much that their guilt has become unbearable. And still, they say nothing. But Scorpio, you feel everything. They speak more carefully now. They measure their tone. They hold their hands differently when you're near. Tension in the fingers, a stiffness in the shoulders. Their energy isn't neutral anymore. It's heavy, almost trembling. They are afraid of what would happen if the truth came out. But they're even more afraid of how much you already sense. And so, they avoid. They overcompensate. They smile harder. They act extra nice. They may even seem distant, tired, distracted. But the truth is this: their soul is unsettled in your presence, because yours is the mirror they can't escape. And you, Scorpio, were never made to walk through life blind. You weren't given that piercing gaze, that ancient bloodline of perception, just for decoration. You were born under Pluto's shadow, the god of the underworld, so you could feel what others bury. You were born with the gift of transformation, yes, but first, with the burden of seeing. You may not always know what is wrong, but you always know that something is wrong. That knowing starts small. A shift in tone, a breath that breaks rhythm, a compliment that feels rehearsed, a distance in someone's eyes, as if they're not looking at you, but through you, like they're bracing for what you might see. And at first, you give them grace. You hold back. You observe. You test the space, gently. But now, Scorpio, that space is testing you. And your body, your temple, your truth keeper, has had enough. You feel it in your neck when they walk into the room. You feel it in your stomach after the conversation ends. You feel it in your soul when you replay their words and realize they didn't answer your question, they redirected it. This is no longer subtle. This is energy pulling at your spirit. And the reason it feels so disorienting is because you are now carrying the weight of their silence. Without permission, without context, without justice, you are holding space for a truth you didn't ask for, a guilt you didn't cause, and a distance you didn't create. This is the emotional cost of being Scorpio. You become the storm's container, the psychic field that absorbs what others refuse to face. But Scorpio, let me remind you, you are not here to carry what is not yours. You are here to name it, to transmute it, to decide, with clarity and spiritual integrity, what belongs in your sacred circle and what must rise to the surface before it becomes poison. So if you've been asking yourself, why does this connection suddenly feel off? Why do I feel tired after being around them? Why do I feel like I'm grieving something, even though nothing's happened? This is your confirmation. Something has happened. It just hasn't been spoken yet. But your body already knows. And your spirit is now calling for alignment. The illusion is breaking. And your next evolution begins when you stop pretending not to feel what you already do. Part 2, who's hiding it? The 3 connections most likely to hold the secret. Now that your body has confirmed what your mind couldn't yet name, let's go deeper. Because this secret that's been disturbing your energetic balance, it's not coming from a stranger. It's not a coworker you barely speak to or a distant acquaintance. No, this energy is too personal, too intimate, too entangled with your own sacred field, which means the person hiding it is close, closer than comfort, closer than you may be ready to admit. Let me offer something clear, something that years of working with Scorpio souls has taught me. When this type of energetic disturbance happens, it's almost always coming from one of three kinds of people. And the moment I name them, someone may flash into your mind. If that happens, don't ignore it. 1. The friend who feels like family. This is the one who knew your stories. The one who saw you through heartbreak or sat beside you during your quiet battles. You trusted them, not just with surface details, but with your softness. They knew how deep you go. They knew your silences. They heard what you didn't say. And now, something has shifted. They still smile, but it doesn't reach their eyes. They check in, but it feels robotic. They say, "I've missed you," but the hug lingers too long, like it's trying to cover a wound. You've probably chalked it up to life, to busyness, but your soul knows it's not just that. Sometimes the people who once held your secrets end up creating one they can't admit to you. 2. The family member you've always leaned on. This could be a sibling, a parent, a cousin, an aunt, someone whose presence has been part of your emotional landscape for so long, it almost feels permanent. They've been your grounding post, your history keeper, the one you expected to always be aligned with your well-being. But lately, they're more cautious, less affectionate, less open. There's hesitation in their voice when they speak your name. Sometimes, they avoid eye contact altogether. Why? Because guilt in family runs deep. It doesn't just disturb the moment, it shakes the roots. And if this person has done something, maybe said something, maybe failed to defend you when it mattered, they're now stuck between regret and pride. And that silence? It's their shield. 3. The one you once loved, or still quietly do. This one is tricky, because love muddies everything. This person knows your heartbeat. They knew your dreams. They saw your strength crack open during private nights when the world had no idea you were falling apart. They were there, and now, they're not quite here anymore. Something in them has pulled back, something weighty. They may reach out at odd times, or avoid you entirely, or say things like, "I just want you to be happy," in that tone that carries more than they're letting on. Scorpio, this may be the person who betrayed the emotional connection, and they know it. They're hoping their silence will bury the truth, but they've forgotten who they're dealing with. You don't bury truth around a Scorpio. You just delay the moment they uncover it. In one of these three roles, someone is hiding, someone you trusted. And now, Scorpio, I want you to pause. Take a breath. Who just came to mind? Because that name, that face, that feeling, it didn't appear by accident. That's not paranoia. That's precision. And your soul, the same one that's been picking up on whispers and shifts, just gave you your first real answer. Now, the real unraveling begins. Part 3. The signs they're hiding something from you. Scorpio, now that your intuition has stirred a name, or maybe even several, it's time to bring the truth closer to the surface. Because the person hiding this shameful secret from you, they're not doing it with bold lies. They're doing it with behavior, with avoidance, with small, almost invisible changes that, to anyone else, mean nothing. But to you, they mean everything. Let's go through the signs, not to accuse, but to affirm what your soul already knows. 1. They've become unnaturally careful around you. Where there used to be flow, there's now hesitation. They watch their words. They edit themselves mid-sentence. They respond slower, choosing phrases like someone tiptoeing through emotional landmines. You can feel it in the air, the tension, not of conflict, but of fear. Fear that one wrong word might expose the very thing they've tried so hard to bury. And Scorpio, you've noticed it. Maybe you've even caught yourself mirroring that caution, pulling your energy back, unsure why. But it's because your body already knows this space has become emotionally distorted. 2. They're suddenly overly polite or uncharacteristically distant. There are two ways guilt behaves. It either clings too tightly or pulls too far away. You may notice they're going out of their way to compliment you, to be agreeable, to do little things that feel just a bit too much, almost as if they're trying to compensate. Or the opposite, they've become quiet, harder to reach. They cancel plans more often. Conversations feel shorter, colder. You feel like a guest in what used to be mutual ground. Either way, the shift is real. And Scorpio, no one reads shifts like you do. 3. They dodge certain topics or redirect the conversation. This is one of the strongest tells. You bring up a mutual friend, and they change the subject. You mention a specific event, and they act like they didn't hear you. Or maybe you ask a simple question, and they give a vague, roundabout answer that avoids the core entirely. Scorpio, this isn't forgetfulness. It's strategy, not to deceive, but to protect themselves from being exposed. But the irony? In trying to avoid the truth, they end up confirming it. Because you're not just listening to their words, you're listening to what they won't say. For their energy feels off, but you can't explain why. This is the hardest part for Scorpio, the space between knowing and proving. You can't point to one thing, but every interaction leaves you feeling drained. You feel tired after seeing them. You sense something off, but when you try to name it, your mind comes up blank. Don't ignore this. This is what it feels like to stand near someone carrying unresolved guilt. Their emotional frequency is disrupted. And because you're so sensitive, so attuned, your body absorbs it like static. It's not in your head, it's in your nervous system. And here's the truth. Even when someone refuses to speak, their energy always testifies. And Scorpio, you speak the language of energy fluently. So now here you are, standing in this strange in-between space, not betrayed directly, not confessed to honestly, but held in a quiet tension that wears down your spirit. The question becomes, what are you going to do with this knowing? Don't worry, we're going there next. In part 4, we'll uncover what exactly they may be hiding and why it weighs so heavily on them. But first, pause and breathe. Ask yourself, who's been dodging truth around you? Whose presence now leaves a question mark in your spirit? Write it down. Acknowledge it. Because once you name the energy, it begins to lose its power. Part 4. What they're hiding. 3 types of secrets burdened by shame. Now that you've named the feeling, Scorpio, now that the unease has a shape, a face, a presence, let's talk about what they're actually hiding. Because this isn't a casual omission. This isn't something simple like forgetting to return a call or missing a dinner. No, this is the kind of secret that carries shame. The kind that curls itself in guilt and wraps around pride. The kind that eats away at self-perception and fractures trust before a single word is even spoken. In my years of reading Scorpio energy and the confessions that eventually rise around it, I've noticed something striking. These kinds of secrets often fall into 3 distinct patterns. And once you see them clearly, the fog starts to lift. 1. They spoke about you in ways they now regret. It may have started in a moment of weakness. Maybe they were venting. Maybe they were trying to impress someone else. Maybe they were defending themselves and used your name as a shield. But whatever the reason, they said something about you that betrayed your trust. They revealed personal things. They twisted a truth. They painted you in a way that felt safer for them, but cost you your dignity. And the worst part? You may never have found out. But they know. And now, every time they see you, their guilt flickers like static in their chest. They see how kind you still are, how you still believe in the connection, and that haunts them, because they know you would have protected them, but they didn't protect you. 2. They stayed silent when you needed them most. This one cuts deep. They were there. They saw someone hurt you. They witnessed something unfair. They heard the lies, or the mockery, or the twisted narrative. And they said nothing, not because they didn't care, but because they froze. Or worse, they thought staying quiet would keep them safe. But now that silence echoes, now they realize, by not defending you, they became complicit in your pain. And Scorpio, you might not even know this moment happened, but their soul remembers. Every time they're near you, that silence screams. And no matter how hard they try to cover it, the weight doesn't go away. 3. They envied you and subtly tried to dim your light. This one is hardest for people to admit, even to themselves. Because they love you, they admire you. But somewhere, deep inside, they felt less than when standing beside your power. They saw your depth, your emotional intelligence, your presence, that magnetic force that makes others feel safe and seen. And instead of celebrating it, they felt small in comparison. So they acted out. Not always obviously. Sometimes it was a comment here, a withheld compliment there, a piece of support they failed to offer when you needed it most. But it wasn't random. It was envy. Not evil, but unhealed. And now they carry the shame of having tried, in some subtle way, to dim the light of someone who never deserved that energy. They know they failed you. They know you would have lifted them. And now, that knowing has turned into a quiet ache they carry around your presence. A reminder of what they did when their shadow spoke louder than their love. So ask yourself, Scorpio, does any of this feel familiar? Do you sense that someone around you may have spoken wrong, stayed silent, or acted from envy, even if their love for you is real. That's the paradox of Scorpio energy. You are so powerful, so deeply rooted in truth, that people's shadows reveal themselves in your light. But now, the light is shifting again. And in part 5, we'll dive into why this guilt hasn't been confessed yet, and what's really keeping them silent. Spoiler, it's not just fear of your reaction. It's something much deeper. And you, Scorpio, are about to uncover it. Part 5, why they haven't confessed, the deeper fear behind their silence. So now you know what they might be hiding. But the real question is, why haven't they told you? Why hasn't the truth come out? Even as the weight of it begins to leak into their voice, their posture, their distance, why do they still pretend? Because Scorpio, it's not just fear of you. It's fear of what you represent. Let me explain. You are not just another person in their life. You're not someone they can brush aside with a simple apology or casual conversation. You're deeper than that, more sacred than that. You represent truth, integrity, consequence, and that's terrifying. Not because you are cruel, but because you are clear. When someone betrays a Scorpio, they don't just fear your wrath. They fear the mirror you become. Because in your presence, they are forced to see the version of themselves they don't want to be. And that is the most unbearable truth of all. They haven't confessed, not because they don't care. They haven't confessed because they care so much that the risk of losing you feels like too much to bear. They're afraid that if they tell you, everything will fall apart. That the image you hold of them, the respect, the loyalty, the emotional closeness, will collapse the moment the truth is named. So instead, they carry it. Poorly, painfully, pretending to function normally, even as their spirit frays under the pressure. But what they don't realize is this. The silence is already causing the very fracture they're trying to avoid. The distance you feel? That's the unspoken truth doing its quiet damage. That's the relationship bleeding from wounds it hasn't acknowledged. Scorpio, you're not just intuitive, you're energetically empathic. When someone close to you carries guilt, it doesn't stay in their aura. It bleeds into yours. You begin to feel things that don't belong to you. You second-guess yourself. You wonder, did I do something wrong? When in reality, you're absorbing the tension of their avoidance. And this is where your power becomes your burden. Because you're so emotionally aware, you carry pain that hasn't even been voiced. But now you see it. Now, the fog is lifting. And Scorpio, let me remind you, you were not born to carry unspoken shame that belongs to someone else. You were born to reveal it, to transform it, to hold space for truth, even when it stings. And when the moment comes, because it will, when their voice trembles and the truth finally breaks through, you'll be ready, not to explode, not to punish, but to witness, to listen, to judge with clarity, not cruelty, to decide, from a place of strength, what this truth now means for your connection. But make no mistake, the confession is coming. And in part 6, we'll explore the moment the truth finally emerges, and how you, Scorpio, can meet it with both power and peace. Because your reaction will not only shape what happens next, it will define the soul contract between you and this person forever. Part 6, the moment of truth, when the confession comes and what to do with it. It's getting closer, Scorpio. That quiet pressure between you and this person, the one who's been holding a secret, is reaching its breaking point. Secrets are not meant to stay buried forever, not when they live this close to the heart. And your presence? It's not letting the truth hide anymore. Whether it slips out in a trembling voice, through a sudden emotional breakdown, or comes indirectly from another source, the moment of truth is coming. And when it arrives, you will find yourself standing at a spiritual crossroads. You'll be asked to choose not just how to respond, but who to be in the face of a painful revelation. Let's walk through that moment together. First, understand this. Your initial reaction is natural. You may feel the sting, like air pulled from your lungs. Your chest may tighten. Emotions might rise fast and hot. Anger, sadness, maybe even shock. Let it come. Let it move through you. But don't let it decide for you. You see, Scorpio, your power doesn't live in your reaction. It lives in your ability to pause and see deeper. You are not new to pain. You've met it in shadows and survived it in silence. And now, this moment isn't meant to break you. It's meant to reveal the strength you've built beneath the surface. When the confession comes, acknowledge the courage it took for them to finally speak. No, this doesn't erase what they did. It doesn't make it harmless. But it matters, because truth-telling takes courage. Especially when shame has been the one in control. Hold space for that moment. Let them feel the weight of your presence. Not as punishment, but as clarity. Then ask the questions that matter. Why now? What held them back for so long? What do they hope can still be saved? This is no longer just about the mistake. It's about what the moment means for them, for you, and for the soul contract between you. Because here's what Scorpio energy understands better than most. The moment after truth is spoken is not just emotional, it's alchemical. And that alchemy begins with choice. You now have the power to decide, with wisdom, not wound, how this will shape your life going forward. You can walk away, or you can stay, and let something deeper be built from the rubble. You can draw a boundary, or open a door. Whatever you choose, let it come from your highest clarity, not your lowest reaction. You are not here to punish. You are here to transform. Because this is not the first time someone's disappointed you, but it may be the first time you truly realize that your peace, your wisdom, your power are no longer dependent on whether others do right by you. You are whole, regardless. You are ready, Scorpio. In the next part, we'll talk about what happens after the truth is spoken, how healing begins, and how you, as Scorpio, will know whether to rebuild what was broken or release it with honor. Because truth is only the beginning. How you choose to move forward, that's where your real evolution begins. Part 7, the sacred choice, rebuild or release. The truth is out now, Scorpio. The silence has broken. The secret has surfaced. And as the dust begins to settle, you're left standing in the sacred stillness that follows every emotional storm. This is not the moment for revenge. It's not even the moment for immediate answers. This is the moment for decision, not from the wound, but from the wisdom the wound has gifted you. You now hold the power, and what you choose next will determine not just the future of this connection, but the energy you carry forward into every relationship that follows. So ask yourself honestly, do I want to rebuild or release? Let's explore both paths. If you choose to rebuild, do it with clear eyes. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's not pretending it didn't matter. It's choosing to see the full weight of what happened and still saying, I'm willing to walk forward with you, but we don't go back. We build anew. Rebuilding means accountability. It means slow trust. It means conversations that might be uncomfortable, but healing. And Scorpio, you have the strength to do this if your soul says the bond is worth it. Because you know the difference between a wounded person who made a mistake and someone who operates in patterns of harm. You've always known. But what if the truth revealed something you can't and shouldn't come back from? Then it's time to release. And not in bitterness, not in rage, but in power. Because there is a unique strength in choosing closure before chaos. There's clarity in saying, I don't hate you. I just choose my peace over this weight. You're not walking away to punish them. You're walking away because your soul no longer wants to orbit a wound. This is what Scorpio does best. We end things to birth something better. You were never meant to stay in connections that rob you of your light. And maybe this time, the real lesson wasn't about who betrayed you. It was about how far you've come. Because once upon a time, you would have let this break you. But not anymore. You are not the version of yourself who tolerated spiritual suffocation just to keep the peace. You've outgrown quiet suffering. And now, you get to choose what kind of love, what kind of friendship, what kind of soul bond truly deserves to be in your sacred space. Whatever you choose, to rebuild or to release, do it with reverence. Because both paths, when chosen consciously, are healing. One heals through restoration, the other through liberation. And Scorpio, either way, you rise. Part 8, when healing begins. How Scorpio reclaims emotional balance after truth. The hardest part is over, Scorpio. The lie has been pierced. The silence has been broken. And now, in the wake of truth, comes the part most people overlook. Healing, not just for them, but for you. Because even when you didn't cause the wound, you still carried the weight of it. In your body, in your spirit, in the quiet tension that shadowed your connection. Now, the question becomes, how do you return to yourself? Because here's the reality. When Scorpio is betrayed, or even just disappointed by someone they trusted, it doesn't just break the connection, it shakes their foundation. You don't just detach, you spiral inward. You revisit old wounds. You ask, why didn't I see it sooner? Why did my soul know? But I stayed anyway. Why do I keep attracting people who aren't honest with me? Stop. Pause. Let me tell you something, Scorpio, that your heart may need to hear right now. Your ability to see through others does not make you responsible for their choices. You saw something good in them, and that was real. You gave them space to be honest, and that was sacred. They chose silence or deception, and that is on them. But now it's time to reclaim what's yours. Your clarity, your peace, your light. Here's how healing begins for you, Scorpio, and why your process is so powerful, so rare, and so transformative. First, you acknowledge the wound, fully, deeply, without denial. You don't pretend you're okay. You don't rush the forgiveness. You sit with it. You breathe into it. You let the pain teach you, but not define you. Next, you cleanse. This might be emotional. This might be spiritual. It might mean cutting cords, burning a letter, walking by water, sitting in stillness and letting your soul speak to you again without the interference of their energy. And finally, you rise. Not because you're over it, but because you've integrated it. You've taken the pain, and like only a Scorpio can, turned it into wisdom, into vision, into a deeper version of yourself. They don't get to keep you stuck. They don't get to shape your future through their mistake. You decide that. And the moment you choose peace over rehashing, growth over resentment, purpose over punishment, that's the moment you step back into your power. Because Scorpio healing isn't passive. It's alchemical. You burn, you purge, you transform. And what's born from the ashes is not fragile. It's focused. It's wise. It's indestructible. You are returning to yourself now. And it's more beautiful than ever before. Part 9. The energetic shift. How your growth affects the person who hurt you. Scorpio, now that you've begun the healing process, something powerful is happening, not just within you, but around you. The energy is shifting, and the person who hurt you, they feel it. They may not be able to explain it, but they sense it. The cord between you has changed frequency. Because when a Scorpio begins to heal, when you start choosing peace over pain, clarity over chaos, your energy no longer feeds the guilt they were hiding in. And that is unsettling for them. Let me explain. When someone carries shame, they often rely, unconsciously, on your attention, your emotional presence, your confusion, even your silence, to keep that shame tucked safely in the shadows. As long as you're uncertain, they can avoid responsibility. As long as you stay connected, even in tension, they feel less alone in what they did. But when you start pulling your energy back, when you start reclaiming your balance and no longer orbit their inner war, they notice. Even if you say nothing, your withdrawal doesn't scream, it whispers. But that whisper hits louder than 1,000 words. It says, I no longer need you to explain. I've already seen enough. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting me. And that unsettles them, Scorpio, because suddenly, they're no longer in control of the emotional script. Suddenly, they're alone with their guilt. And without your presence to soften it, that guilt gets louder. You see, your power was never about revenge. It was always in the way your absence reveals truth. Because for someone who once betrayed your trust, your silence becomes the mirror they can't look away from. It reflects back to them who they were, and who they weren't strong enough to be when it mattered. So don't be surprised if they start reaching out again. Not always with words, sometimes with gestures, a random message, a memory brought up in passing, an awkward attempt to check in. They're hoping to reconnect, not always because they've changed, but because your growth has made them feel the full weight of their own stagnation. And here's the most important thing. You don't owe them access just because they now regret the distance. Forgiveness is your choice. Reconnection is your boundary. And Scorpio, this is where your evolution deepens. You're no longer making decisions from pain. You're making them from sovereignty. You're no longer asking, do they deserve to stay? You're asking, does this version of me have space for that energy? And that, Scorpio, is how your growth becomes the lesson they were never expecting. Not through confrontation, but through your quiet reclamation of power. In Part 10, we'll enter the final chapter, the wisdom you carry forward, and how this entire experience becomes a spiritual rite of passage. Because this wasn't just a conflict, it was a turning point, and you are never going back. Part 10, Final Awakening, the Soul Lesson and Scorpio's Rise. This is the final turning point, Scorpio. Not the end of the story, but the end of a cycle. The end of a soul loop you've walked through many times in many forms. And now, finally, you see it clearly. This wasn't just about someone hiding something from you. It was about what you do when you sense something isn't right, but love makes you hesitate. It was about trusting your intuition, honoring your boundaries, and remembering your role as a guardian of emotional truth. You are not just the keeper of secrets. You are the revealer of what no one else has the courage to confront. And through this experience, you've reclaimed something essential: your inner compass, your clarity, your choice. Because here's the real soul lesson, Scorpio, the one this entire journey was preparing you for. Not everyone is meant to walk with you to the next level of your becoming. Some people come to teach, some come to trigger, some come to mirror wounds still healing. But very few are meant to stay, and that's okay. You are not losing people. You are losing illusions. And what remains after the illusions burn? That's real. That's sacred. That's unshakable. So where does that leave you? It leaves you wiser, more anchored, more attuned to what your soul deserves. You now know how to listen to the energy behind words. You now understand that forgiveness is powerful, but self-protection is holy. You felt the sting of disappointment, but chose not to let it define your identity. This is your rise, Scorpio, not in fire, not in fury, but in stillness, in the kind of peace that comes when you've walked through emotional darkness and emerged with your integrity intact. You're no longer chasing closure. You are closure. You are the flame that refuses to be extinguished. You are the truth that doesn't flinch. You are the sign that others fear and admire, not because of your sting, but because of your sight. And now, as you move forward, you do so lighter, cleaner, stronger. The past no longer binds you. The silence no longer controls you. And the secret? It no longer belongs to you. You've returned to yourself. And from here, everything changes. If something in this message touched a deep place in your spirit, leave a comment below. Tell me, did someone come to mind? Have you ever felt this shift before? And if you want more insight like this, not just surface astrology, but soul-level truth, subscribe to The Path to Buddhist Wisdom. We're not just talking about signs. We're decoding the contracts written in spirit. Scorpio, your transformation is your testimony. And this was just the beginning.